Okay, we are speaking today at the Kosel about the fascinating aspect of chesed, and especially we touched on the concept of Christian kindness, that our Christian cousins have adopted a golden rule, which is don't do unto others as you don't want done to you. And we pointed out that it just is not the right way for a Jew to lead his life with that golden rule. It's not the golden rule of Klal Yisrael. In fact, the golden rule of Jewish people is do chesed because emulate Hashem's chesed. Hashem doesn't do chesed because he wants chesed back. Hashem doesn't need our chesed. And every single act of Hashem's existence is chesed. So it doesn't go by 1 second of the day. Now Hashem is beyond time and space. He doesn't live, as it were, in time. He's above time and space. But a second in Hashem's universe does not pass where he's not doing chesed. And we must emulate this way and try also to do chesed, not because we want it back. If we do chesed because we want it back, our spouses will feel that, and this might be the reason they're asking you for a divorce. Again, you should have a Rav and consult a Rav if you find that your spouse is acting very irrationally, maybe throwing things at you or screaming at you, things which are not so nice, or other things. It's a good idea to speak to Rav, maybe a psychologist. I'm just giving you some food for thought that before you contact Beis Din and ask them forget, first check yourself. You know, as I quoted Shakespeare recently, right? That said, the fault is not in the stars, but it's in ourselves. And a person should always look inwards first before looking outwards, inwards, because our spouses are in fact a reflection of ourselves. And as far as they say, it's the meat of Malchus. The meat of Malchus is that a reflection. Malchus is a reflection, and that we are um, confronted with ourselves when we see our spouse, and we are forced to deal with the issues that we may have. So, this is the first thing I'm suggesting if your spouse is asking for a divorce, is maybe check your chesed. Like people say, check your mezuzahs. Check your chesed. Why are you doing chesed? Are you doing chesed because you want it back? If that's the reason you're doing it, so you're really a selfish person. As my Rebbe or Shlomo Brevda said, he said, there's many fish in America. White fish, and there's tuna fish, and there's salmon fish, but the most popular one is selfish. And Reb Brevda taught us to go very, very deep. Selfish doesn't mean that there's one piece of cake left on the plate and you grab it for yourself when other people are hungry and you've already had 3 pieces. That's not selfish. It is selfish, maybe, but it doesn't end there. It starts there. On a deeper level, selfish means that you're doing things for yourself. And if you're doing chesed because you want chesed back, that's chesed l'uchatis. David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Kuf Beis, to remove me from the fetters of myself, so I could praise your name. We can only really properly praise Hashem's name if we remove ourselves from the fetters of ourselves. And we get out. We get out of our selfishness. And we don't do chesed because we want it back. We do chesed to emulate Hashem, and because it is intrinsically the right thing to do. Right? We want to do chesed for our spouse because we just want to do it. We just want to help them. We enjoy helping other people, and not even because we enjoy it, not because we get a good feeling from it. I read in a certain book by a very wonderful non-Jew who wrote a book about strategies for living a more peaceful and tranquil life, and that's a nice thing to do kindness because we want to feel good, but it's not the end. That's still chesed mu'achatas. We have to do chesed because it's the right thing to emulate a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And even if we're lying in bed and half asleep, and our spouse asks us for something, we should be ready to do it, and in most cases, to agree. Um, we find many Tanoim and Amroim were very great tzaddikim. They had wives who were difficult. If we find many, we find some. And you have to know, it's not easy. Marriage is not easy for the men or for the women. Because I quoted in the last class that Tosus read says that men and women have absolutely nothing in common. Nothing. Not one attribute. They don't share one common denominator. Right? Not the way they think, not the way they speak, not the way they act, not the way they feel. And this makes marriage very challenging. But especially in this arena of chesed, we have to be very, very careful, especially us men, because the women, they could sniff out this false chesed, this chesed which is tainted. In the words of one non-Jewish singer, it's something called tainted love, love which is tainted by self self desire, and we want to be careful about that. So be careful during these days. We're working on chesed to understand what chesed really is all about. It's much deeper than meets the eye. It's all about emulating Hashem. And look at Hashem, as my close Yedid in St. Karmar once said, Dear Shu Hashem bimatsu. He said from one of the great Hasidic thinkers, I think it was Rav Simcha Banim Pishka. He said, bimatsu, when Hashem created the world purely, purely to do kindness. And this is how we should look for Hashem, with pure kindness. No self-motivations. No self-motivations at all. It's called Chesed Shel Emes. I'll speak more about this with Zrat Hashem. But meanwhile, I'm leaving you with these ideas that if your spouse is asking you for a divorce, it could be they have good reason. Again, everyone should have a Rav, should consult with your Rav, but it could be start by checking your Chesed. Is your Chesed based on the Golden Rule, or is your Chesed based on Chazal? And if your Chesed is based on the fact you want Chesed back, so this is called Christian kindness, and this is dangerous for a Jew. Hashem is not happy with it, and he might be causing very severe, very extreme reactions from your spouse because he wants something deeper. He wants something more. So whether it is or it isn't, it's win-win-win. Because if you do chesed for the right reasons, you're getting a mitzvah. So whether it works or it doesn't, you can only win here. So I'm wishing everyone a Chag Sameach and Hatzlach and Bracha, Siyata Shmai, everything you do, and we should all be zeicha to really touch on this wonderful meaning of Chesed of the kids.